Welcome to Night Fiction, where the realms of imagination come alive after dark. I'm your guide through a labyrinth of captivating stories, thrilling narratives, and mysterious adventures. Join me under the starry digital sky as we explore the enchanting world of night fiction together. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let the journey into the night begin. What if Deku became the magical Quirk mascot? Many years ago, a baby was born in China that lit up like the sun. Since then, about 80% of the population has since gained powers. To the extent that superheroes and supervillains had begun to rise, and becoming a hero was a popular profession. Many schools popped up to teach on how to become heroes, and in Japan, the best was UA. And that day is the entrance exam. Many students had gathered, including a girl wearing a sailor fuku. She had blonde spiky hair. Around her neck was a simple necklace that had a bright orange gem. However, interestingly was a strange animal on her shoulder. It was green, had bunny ears and a tail that resembled a dog's. But its body shape was most interesting. It was bipedal and it sort of resembled a stuffed toy. Also, there was a gem on its forehead that shifted between bright orange and a vibrant green. "I can't believe it," said the animal, which had a boy's voice while its tail was wagging. "We're really here." "We are," replied the girl. She then tossed the animal off her shoulder, who landed with a thud. "Kachan!" cried the animal as he got up. "Seriously, Deku," yelled Kachan, pointing at the animal. "If you want to be a hero, you have to be in your human form. You can't be in your animal form all day." "I know, but I only have 4 hours. We don't know how long the test will take," said Deku. "But shouldn't you be entering the school as a human at least?" said Kachan. Deku sighed, and there was a puff of green smoke. When it cleared, he was now a teenage boy wearing a school uniform. He had messy dark green hair and freckles on his cheek. Also, he still had his bunny ears and tail. "Is that better?" asked Deku. Kachan nodded. And both of them headed into the school building. When Deku tripped over his feet, "Of course," groaned Kachan. However, Deku suddenly found himself floating. "What?" he said. "Sorry about that," said rather bubbly voice. They turned and saw a girl with rosy cheeks and shoulder-length brown hair. "It's a bad omen to trip before the exam," said the girl. "No, it's fine," said Deku. The girl put her fingers together and Deku managed to land. "That's such an interesting quirk," said Deku. "You really think so?" asked the girl. Deku nodded. "What does it do?" asked Deku. "It allows me to take the gravity of objects I touch," explained the girl. "That's so cool," said Deku. "Well, it was nice talking to you," said the girl. "We do have an exam to take." "You're right," said Deku. "See you later," said the girl, running inside. Deku's tail wagged. "I did it. I talked to a real girl," he said. Deku growled out. Kachan Deku froze as he looked at the angry Kachan. "Oh no, I just implied she wasn't a real girl," thought Izuku, who began to sweat a lot. Kachan glared at Deku, then started laugh. "Relax, I'm just fucking with you," said Kachan. Deku breathed a sigh of relief. "I knew what you meant," said Kachan. "I know you would never think that way about me." Deku smiled when she said that. "Besides, I bet by the end of the day you bond with her," said Kachan. "Kachan!" cried Deku. "Come on, we have an exam to take," said Kachan. "Oh right," said Deku. They took the written exam, and soon enough it was time for the orientation for the practical exam. "All right, listeners, are you ready for the practical exam?" yelled the one explaining everything, who was obviously a pro hero. "Everybody say, hey." He got a silence as no one yelled along with him. With Deku and Kachan, as they sat next to each other due to going to the same school, Deku's tail was wagging. "It's President Mike. I listen to his radio show every day," said Deku. Kachan snorted at her friend. "All right, you're all serious. All right, so this test is going to be a battle simulation in a hip urban setting. You will be fighting faux villain in a fake setting. Each of these faux villains will have a point assigned to it. 1, 2 and 3 pointers. And you have 10 minutes to accumulate as many points as possible," explained the President Mike. Deku looked at both his and Kachan's ids and saw they were in different battlefields. "I guess they don't want friends teams up," said Deku. "We wouldn't have teamed up for this anyway," muttered Kachan. "But still, what are the opponents?" said Deku, who began to mutter about what the villains could be and how to fight them. Kachan just rolled her eyes at her friend. "Excuse me," called out one of the many students. "Yes, examinee 7111, said President Mike. The spotlight was shown on a rather tall boy with dark blue hair and glasses. "You said there were 3 villains. The pamphlet said there would be 4 of them," said the boy. "I would think that an institution such as UA wouldn't make such mistakes." Then the boy turned to where Deku and Kacchan were sitting. "All you with the rabbit ears. Your muttering is distracting. We're here to try to become heroes. Take things seriously," he yelled out. Deku shivered at the attention, and then he was engulfed by a puff of green smoke and reverted to being an animal. Before Kacchan could say anything back at him, Present Mike answered him that it was a 0-pointer, just something to act like a distraction. The two listened, but it was clear Kacchan was angry. "That guy better hope we don't share the same place," muttered Kacchan, who started to finger her necklace. "I think you'd be disqualified for attacking him," pointed out Deku. "I would tail him and steal his points," said Kacchan with an evil smirk. "I should have known," sighed Deku. They paid attention as Present Mike gave them a quote from Napoleon, then gave them the school motto, "Go beyond plus ultra." He cheered. But of course no one joined him. They all got ready, with Deku having to be in his human form on the bus ride to his testing ground. He was nervous and looked around at the other participants. He considered acting one of his abilities to have them reassure them. Then he noticed the girl he met at the entrance who was trying to calm herself down. He decided to try to help her, however that one boy stopped him. "What do you think you're doing? Can't you see she's trying to calm herself?" said the boy. "You shouldn't be interrupting her." "I didn't mean it like that," said Deku. "We are trying to be future heroes. We shouldn't be hindering other students," he told him. Deku didn't say anything. And it only worse as he heard a lot of the other test takers say stuff about him like, "That's one less person we have to worry about," and, "Really? He thinks ears and a tail will let him pass? All right. Go. Go. Go," they heard Present Mike yell. Everyone was confused. "There's no countdowns in real battles," yelled Present Mike. They realized the test had begun and everyone ran in. At the same time, Kacchan was getting ready. Everyone stared at her as she didn't change out of her uniform like everyone else. However, when Present Mike yelled this out, she smirked. "All right," she said. She grabbed her necklace and suddenly is engulfed in a bright orange light. Back with Deku, he ran through the city. That was when he came across one of the villains. It was a robot and there was a 1 written on. "That's 1-pointer," said Deku. He had a plan to deal with them. Looked at the robot and pulled his hand in a certain way. A piece of the robot flew to his hand, disabling it. "All right, that's 1, said Deku, then he ran to find more. Not noticing a disappointed boy nearby laminating that he wasn't able to kill Steel. Izuku found more robots, this time 2 2-pointers. "All right. I should use Kacchan's then," said Deku. He ran towards the robots and when he was close enough he let loose some explosions from his hands, blowing them up. And it was his strategy, he would blow up the 2 and 3-pointers while ripping out the components out of the 1-pointers. Of course the teachers were watching the exam. One of the teachers, a very thin and skeletal man with messy blonde watching, noticed the fact that Deku seemingly had 2 quirks, a teleclinic one and an explosive one. That was when the principal of the school, a creature that was either a large mouse, a small bear or some kind of dog, noticed his face. "I see you're worried about Izuku Midoriya," said the principal. The teacher froze for a second, then turned to the screen with Deku, or rather Izuku, on it. "That's part of his quirk," explained the principal. "What?" asked the thin teacher. "His quirk has multiple aspects. One of them is that it allows him to create bonds with people," explained the principal. "Bonds?" said the teacher. The principal nodded. "It's a symbiotic bond. He gets a permanent copy of his quirk while in human form, while the one he bonds with gains new abilities, including stronger version of their quirks and special armor," said the principal. "In fact, one the people he bonded with is taking the exam." "Which one is it?" asked a teacher wearing what appeared to be a spacesuit. "Katsuki Bakugo, she's in a different testing site," said Nezu. The thin teacher turned into the screen showing that group and saw Kacchan, or rather Katsuki. "What is she wearing?" asked the thin teacher. "I said it was a special armor," said the principal. "That's armor?" asked a teacher wearing a gas mask and was dressed like a cowboy. With Katsuki, she was blowing up robots left and right. However, many of the other test taker couldn't help but to stare at her, or rather what she was wearing. It consisted of black sleeveless shirt with an orange X crossing it, a metal collar, a green frilly skirt that somewhat resembled a grenade with the way its frill were, black army boots and green gloves. Over her eyes, which was a black mask that had black and orange spike shape coming from, and right above her mask was the bright orange gem from her necklace. Also her hair was now peppered with bright orange streaks. Back with the teachers, they couldn't help but to stare at the strange outfit. "The other person he bonded with was his mother," explained the principal. "That's where the other quirk comes from." The teachers all nodded. However, the thin teacher breathed a sigh of relief. He was uncomfortable with someone displaying multiple quirks, and if there was an explanation for it, even it was particularly strange, it did put him at ease. Back with Katsuki, she decided it was time to up her game. "Alright, I think it's time to bring that out," she said. She lifted her hand to the gem on her forehead and suddenly an orange light appeared. The light took the form of what appeared to be a wand. The handle was a bright orange while the top was a glimmering green gem that resembled a grenade. She swung her wand and the robots all exploded. The teachers watching stared at this sight. "Did she just summon a wand and blew up all those robots with a wave of the wand?" asked a woman teacher dressed like a dominatrix. Yes, she did," said the principal, not even hiding amusement in his voice. "By the way, I think it's time for the real test." Back with Izuku, he was taking a short break trying to calculate how many points he had gotten so far. That was when everything began to shake. He turned and saw a giant robot that was emerging. On it was printed, 0. "That's the 0-pointer," cried Izuku. Everyone started to run away from the giant robot. Izuku was going to run away too, but that was when he heard a cry. He turned and saw the girl from the entrance. She was trapped under rubble, with the 0-pointer looking like it was going to crush her. He didn't even think. He ran towards her. As he did, he ran right past that one boy. When he got to the girl, he began to look at the rubble. "It's too big to use Mom's and I might just hurt her more if I blow it up," he thought. He then remembered what she said about her quirk earlier. "That might be my only choice," he thought, realizing it. "Hey," he said. She looked up. "It's you, can you help me?" she said. "I can, but we have to bond," said Izuku. "What?" asked the girl. "It's part of my quirk, I can form bonds with people, but the bond is permanent. So you'll be stuck with me for the rest of your life," said Izuku. "But not physically, we'll have a telepathic bond. It won't be on all the time I have to activate, but every time I activate I'll be there." And she stared at the boy as the 0-pointer headed towards them. "I accept," said the girl, knowing they were in danger. "Okay," sighed Izuku. She was wondering how this would go. She didn't expect for him to turn into a small stuffed toy-like animal in a puff of smoke. "What?" she yelled out. "It's part of my quirk," said Izuku, blushing. That was when the gem on his forehead started to glow and a small yet bright light emerged from it the same size of the gem. "Grab it," said Izuku. The girl managed to reach other and grab it. When she did, she was engulfed a light pink light. She felt a warmth all over her body. Her clothes also turned into something else. It was a light pink and black like leotard. There was a light pink belt. Below the belt was a black skirt with a second layer underneath that was light pink. She also wore puffy light pink boots and over her face a pink visor of some kind. On her wrists were light pink bracelets and she had short sleeves that were light pink clear bubbles, and on her chest was a light pink gemstone. Also, though her hair, she gained light pink streaks, including 2 framing her face. Not only that, but Izuku's forehead gem now shimmered a light pink along with the bright orange and green. The girl also had a feeling, a new power within her. That was when all of the rubble started floating on its own. Though Izuku was also caught up in the zero gravity. "No way," she said, getting up. However, the 0-pointer was right on them. "Oh no," she cried out. She grabbed the floating animal and then flew away from the giant robot. As they were flying away, she realized 2 things. One was her quirk drawback wasn't affecting her, it caused nausea. And the other was that she was flying, it was nothing. "The bond also powers up your quirk when you're dressed like that," Izuku explained nervously. "Really?" asked the girl, who was surprised and excited at this. In the viewing room, all of the teachers had saw this. They knew they had to score both things. However, most of them were just surprised and baffled at what they just saw. Did young Midoriya just turn into a small animal, and somehow changed her outfit?" said the thin teacher. "He did," said the principal, sipping tea, amused at all this, and was actually happy to see the bonding in action. He had heard that due to multiple reasons Izuku didn't really bond with people beyond his friend and mother. "What is his quirk?" asked the teacher dressed like a dominatrix. "It's called Magical Girl Mascot," said the principal, once again not hiding any of the amusement from his voice. They all stared at the screen. They realized that the boy, small animal, had gained enough points to probably pass. Meaning that one of the students was going to be a magical girl mascot. In the back of the room, a teacher watched. He was dressed in almost all black expat for a type of scarf. He rubbed his forehead. "That kid is going to end up in my class," he muttered to himself, fighting off an oncoming headache. Back in Izuku's testing site, the girl landed just as President Mike called out, "And time's up." "Are you okay?" asked the girl, putting the small animal down. The animal nodded before turned back into his human form with a puff of green smoke. "I'm fine. What about you? I think you might have hurt your leg," said Izuku. "Oh, it's fine," said the girl, "when you did that, I felt it heal right up." "Oh, I didn't know I could do that," said Izuku surprised. "It's just I've only ever done it twice, and both were accidents, though Mom knew she was doing, and—" said the girl deciding to stop him. "How do I change my clothes back?" "Oh, you just focus on turning back," said Izuku. The girl did that and her clothes turned back to the workout clothes she is wearing. She also noticed that she was now wearing a necklace just like Katsuki's except her gem was a light pink. "Oh right, I should tell Mom and Kachan," said Izuku. "What?" asked the girl. "Hey," she heard Izuku's voice in her head, then remembered what he said about a telepathic bond. "You better have racked up a lot of points, Deku. We are not going with Plan B," came Katsuki's voice. "I'm sure he got enough points," reassured another voice that was clearly an adult woman's. "I think I did," explained Izuku, "but it's not about that." "What is it?" asked the woman's voice. "I bonded with a girl," thought Izuku. "Hi." The girl joined the conversation realizing if she thought they could hear her. "What?" asked the woman. "There better be a good reason, Deku," responded Katsuki. "She got pinned by debris when the zero-pointer showed up," explained Izuku. "It was the only way to save her." "Okay, that is a good reason," replied Katsuki. "Zero-pointer?" asked the woman. "We'll tell you later, auntie," replied Katsuki. "Wait, should I join you, said the girl. "It's better if we all explain it in person," said the woman. "You can just tell your parents you met some new friends at the exam, which is pretty much true," thought Izuku. "You're right," replied the girl. "I'm pretty sure you're getting stares right now, so we'll just meet up at the entrance," said Katsuki. "Later," said Izuku. He cut of the telepathy. "So," said the girl. "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya," said Izuku, "sorry for being stuck with me." "It's fine, it's better than being crushed, and I'm Ochako Uraraka," said the girl named Ochako. "Excuse me," said voice. They turned and saw a small old woman dressed in a lab coat and also had a visor and was using a syringe-shaped cane. "No way. You're recovery girl," skewed Izuku as his tail started to wag. "His tail wags as a human. That's so cute," thought Ochako blushing. Yes, now are either of you two injured?" asked the old woman. "No, we're fine," said Ochako. However, the two of them were being watched by the boy. He ran in to save her even though it was test. Granted if it wasn't a test I would have done the same thing, thought the boy. Wait, is it possible? Not too longer later, Katsuki was waiting for Izuku and Ochako. "Kachan," called out Izuku. Katsuki turned to the two. She looked at the other girl. "What the fuck, Deku," muttered Katsuki. "I was joking earlier when I said you would bond with her." Izuku laughed as he turned back into his animal form. "I know," sighed Izuku. Katsuki sighed and smirked. "Either way, welcome to the team," said Katsuki. "Come on, we have a train to catch." Izuku jumped onto Katsuki's shoulder and Ochako followed them. And thus began the story of Izuku Midoriya, who would go on to form bonds with quite a few his classmates, other people who weren't in his class, and would go on to become one of the most interesting heroes of all time. During the train ride, Izuku explained to Ochako part of his situation involving his own transformation, namely that his animal form was his default form. "Seriously?" asked Ochako. "I can only spend a certain amount of time in my human form," he explained as he sat on Katsuki's shoulder, "but the rest of the time." "He's a stuffed toy," said Katsuki. "Kachan, don't call me that," said Izuku. "How long do you have?" asked Ochako. "Don't know," said Izuku, who began what appeared to be some sort of mutter spree. "I hadn't made a bond since I was 4 and last time it doubled from 2 hours when I first bonded with Kachan to 4 when I bonded with my mom. So I either have 8 hours or if it just adds 2 hours then I have 6 hours now." "Will you shut up?" muttered Katsuki. "Wait, were you always like this or were you born human?" asked Ochako. "Born human. Normal ears and no tail. Then when my quirk came in," said Izuku. "We thought a villain turned him into that," said Katsuki. "No, it's just his weird-ass quirk. Until I accidentally bonded with Kachan I was stuck like this for days," said Izuku. She began to pet his head. "It's okay now," said Ochako. "Please stop petting me," said Izuku. "But," said Ochako. Izuku noticed that his tail was wagging as she petted him. "Stop that," he hissed at his tail, but of course it wouldn't obey. This only made Ochako laugh. Soon enough they got to the stop and headed to Izuku's apartment. Izuku turned to his human form as he didn't have any pockets or clothes in his animal form. Thankfully anything he's holding in his human form just goes somewhere. He guesses it's similar to what happens to the clothes and items the others were wearing when they transform into their magical girl form. "Mom. I'm home," called out Izuku. I made tea for everyone, called out his mother. They headed to the living room, kitchen. Hey mom, said Izuku. Hello Izuku, Katsuki, said Izuku's mother who had green hair and appeared to be in her late 20s or early 30s. Ochako noticed that she was also wearing the same type of necklace as she and Katsuki was wearing except her gem was green. And you're Izuku's new partner. It's nice to meet you. Yeah, it's nice to meet you Mrs. Midoriya, said Ochako. Oh you can call me Inko, said Izuku's mom. That was when she started to cry. What, said Ochako. Mom, cried Izuku. I'm sorry. But you haven't made a bond since you were little and with everything, I wasn't sure you would ever make another one, cried Inko. Katsuki snorted as she sat down. Come on, you're the one always telling us that hero students would accept us no matter what, said Katsuki. I know, but still, sniffled Inko. Ochako sat down next to Katsuki. Just a heads up both of them cry, a lot, so you better get used to it, said Katsuki. Okay, said Ochako. So you mentioned you had to bond with her to save her, said Inko managing to calm down. Oh right, said Izuku. This is going to suck, Katsuki muttered to herself. Izuku explained why he bonded with her and the giant robot. And so they explained about the zero-pointer along with the robot part of the test. Inko just stared at them. Please tell me you're lying, said Inko. None of the three looked at her in the eye. Seriously? Asked Inko. Mom, it's the best hero schools in the country, said Izuku. It makes sense that the test would be that way. I know, but, said Inko, I'm sure Katsuki was. We were assigned different testing grounds, said Izuku. I see, sighed Inko. Well at least. Both of you are safe and didn't fight that zero-pointer. Izuku nodded, however Katsuki was calmly sipping her tea. Both Inko and Izuku stared at the girl. Really Kachan? Asked Izuku. I don't know what you mean, said Katsuki. Flashback. Katsuki was using her wand to cause explosions to blow up all over the zero-pointer, damaging it. Sure, she wasn't getting any points, but still, it was a great way to test her wand's capabilities. She knew quite a bit, but it always good to learn more. Die! She yelled at the robot. Of course those sharing the test area just stared at the girl. End of flashback, said Ochako, deciding to change the subject. You look so young, I was surprised to know you're his mom. Oh, I get that all the time, said Inko. I haven't aged since I bonded with Izuku. The doctors think that his quirk stopped my aging and it might happen to you and Katsuki after a certain point. Ochako was just shocked by this. Are you serious? Asked Ochako in shock. There are a lot we have to tell you, sighed Izuku. They told her about his copying ability, as well as the fact that Ochako can summon a wand that would utilize her quirk in a certain way. Along with the name of Izuku's quirk, which did make her giggle. Also they told her about the side effect if a male makes a bond and what happens to them, and told them how they knew that. Katsuki was glaring at her. I'm fine with it, said Ochako, it's not your fault it happened. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief when she said while Katsuki snorted. Deku, said Katsuki. Ochako froze as she felt the telepathic connection again open. Seriously, she said out loud. Izuku, scolded Inko telepathically. Sorry, it's just, said Izuku, closing it off. We're not exactly popular at our school, muttered Katsuki. There's plenty of kids we grew up with and those that didn't still heard about it. The fuckers always say stuff like, oh there's brainwashing involved, or that, Deku steals souls. Honestly the teachers don't do anything, and if they're in the room they don't even try to stop it, honestly. It's always been the two of us against the world. That's horrible, said Ochako. I was right though, said Inko. About what? Asked Ochako. I always reassured them that if they go to hero school those learning how to be heroes won't care and will see them for them, said Inko. Ochako looked at the two of them. It was clear they had been through a lot. We're partners now, right? Asked Ochako. Izuku smiled. And hopefully all three of you will be accepted, said Inko. Izuku sighed. Deku, I'm sure you got enough points, muttered Katsuki. I know you got a lot of points, said Izuku. I just don't want to do plan B. What's plan B? Asked Ochako. See, I could be registered as Katsuki's animal partner, said Izuku, blushing. Ochako stared at Izuku, who was blushing so hard. But you're human, said Ochako. But most of the item I'm in my animal form, and even if I go to sleep as a human I'll end up turning back, said Izuku. We won't have to do it, Deku, I'm sure you have enough points, said Katsuki. Izuku was blushing even more. Before Ochako left they exchanged phone numbers so they could have conversations one-on-one. Though they did tell here was a nightly telepathic conversation between them, and since Izuku hadn't figured out how to make it one-on-one yet it was a group conversation. But it was fun. Ochako was a really nice girl although she lived far away. Though if got into UA, then she would move much closer. Over the course of the next week Izuku was still worried. That is until Inko showed up with a letter from UA. "It's here," said Inko. Izuku decided to read it alone. He went to room. He opened the letter and it was a holograph disc that came on right away. "I am here. As a hologram." The hologram came to life showing a very muscular man with blonde hair and a bright smile. "All Might. I thought this was form UA," said Izuku. Though his tail was wagging seriously. All Might was the great of all heroes and Izuku was a big fan. Like really big. Like his room was covered in his posters and other merch, big fan. Ever since was a child he looked up to All Might. And to have a holographic letter from him. "Now you must be wondering why I'm here. You see, starting this year you're looking at the new heroics teacher at UA," said All Might. "No way," said Izuku. All Might nodded. "Now let's get into your test scores. Your written exam was one of the highest, but of course you can't get into the hero course on just the written test alone. You managed to get a score of 34, not bad. However, the truth is there was a metric we don't tell those taking the tests," explained the All Might hologram. Izuku's eyes widened. "You see, there was an additional set of scores we judge on. After all, we are trying to teach heroes?" asked All Might. That was when it started showing footage of when he saved Ochako. "You see, in addition to all of the villain points we have award rescue points," said All Might. "The teachers act as judges, though there were a few problems as they were distracted by your unique quirk." "Yeah, that's kind of understandable," said Izuku. He knew his quirk was interesting. Once they were able to re-watch it, it was determined that your rescue of young Uraraka was worth 50 rescue points, meaning you have a total of 83 points. "No way," said Izuku, tail wagging like crazy. "Welcome to You Hero Academia," said All Might with a grin. Izuku's tail was wagging like crazy. He activated the telepathy. "Did you guys get your letters yet?" asked Izuku. "Fuck yeah," yelled Katsuki. "I beat up 103 points of villains. Got first place too." "All right, Kachan," cheered Ochako, who had since picked up the 2 nicknames. "What about you, Deku?" "I got over 30 villain points and 50 rescue points when I saved you," explained Izuku. "I got 28 villain points and 45 rescue points," said Ochako. "I'm in too." "Wait, rescue points?" asked Katsuki. Turned out there was a secret point system," said Izuku, and "Katsuki, you just fought the villains, didn't you?" asked Inko, who quickly put together the pieces. "They just told us to fight the villains," muttered Katsuki. "How was I supposed to know we also had to help people? Besides, when we become heroes, that will be Deku's job. He'll save them while I fight the villains." Izuku sighed at his friend. "But still," cheered Ochako, "all of us are going to UA. Are you two ready?" "You still have a couple months," giggled Inko, "plus you 3 still need to graduate before you can go to UA. By the way, Deku," said Ochako, "how much did your tail wag when you saw All Might?" "Oh come on," said Izuku. "I bet so much wagging," laughed Katsuki. "Please stop," sighed Izuku. He could even hear his own mother join in the giggles. But still all of them were going to UA. But of course they had to deal with their middle schools until graduation. Which included Katsuki and Izuku being brought to the principal to congratulate them. As he did, Katsuki just glared at the principal. About how the 2 top students were let in the best hero school in the country and even getting some of the top scores at that. After the meeting, Katsuki unleashed some explosions. "That bastard!" yelled Katsuki. "Congratulate us when all of the teachers just turn their backs, when the entire school belittled and bullied us, that two-faced bastard." "Katsuki, calm down, please," begged Izuku. Katsuki began to calm down. "You know what I think? For the first time in my life I won't be getting mad," said Katsuki. "I have a bad feeling about this," said Izuku. Katsuki took out her phone. Turned out she often filmed the bullying that the teacher ignored. She decided for once in her life to listen to the phrase, "Don't get mad, get even." During break, Katsuki anonymously released the video online about the bullying, so much that there was an investigation opened up. Turned out with the rise of quirks there were anti-bullying laws set up. After all, with so many people with powers, if someone was bullied they could use their quirk to do something to the school. It wasn't all brining down their school. Ochako had to move somewhere close to the school. Thankfully Inko helped in trying to find the girl an apartment close by, and found a cheap 1-room. With Inko offering the girl to each over for dinner whenever she needed to. Her parents at first were worried when a boy had mind-linked. But after learning that it wasn't all the time, that there were 2 others, including another girl and his mother, they realized it should be fine. Especially since Inko was a big help and promising to look after the girl. Also, while she didn't see it on her first visit, Ochako finally saw Izuku's room. During the first week she had learned that Izuku was a huge All Might fan during the conversations, but she finally saw his room. She couldn't help to giggle at the rather fun combination. Due to the fact that his default form was that of his animal form, most of the furniture of the room was tiny. A little bed, a little desk and chair. There were a couple regular-sized chairs, plus some full-sized shelves just to keep some of his All Might stuff. But the combination of the All Might nerd room and the adore tiny furniture got Ochako laughing. "Please stop," cried Izuku. "But it's so cute," laughed Ochako. Izuku sighed. Also during this time, there was a meeting where it was decided that something should happen during the school year. "I need 2 more partners by the end of the school year?" asked Izuku. "Why?" "Izuku, you need more time as a human," said Inko. "If you're going to be a hero you can't limit yourself to 6 hours, said Katsuki. Izuku sighed and knew that they had a point. After figuring out that adding another partner added 2 hours to his time and not doubled it. "But what if they all reject me?" asked Izuku. "I doubt we'll be the only 2 girls in class," said Katsuki. "I'm sure there would be someone in class who would want to bond," said Ochako. "Besides, the deadline is the end of the school year. I'm sure by that point you'll befriend 2 girls who would want to join you." "But what if," said Izuku. "Deku, I doubt you'd end up in a class of only guys," said Katsuki with a sweat drop. Izuku sighed. He just hoped they would right. Katsuki and Izuku also during this time brought Ochako to a place they usually secretly trained, a beach that was a literal dump. "I know I haven't really had the chance to use my powers since the exam," sighed Ochako, "but this place? No cares about this place," said Katsuki. "We've been using this place for years and like Kachan just said no one cares," said Izuku in his animal form. "Okay," sighed Ochako. She grabbed her necklace and transformed. She remembered how she was able to use her quirk without touching anything. This time thankfully nothing was just floating around her. However, she did look at something and the motion over to it. It started to float. "I don't even have to touch it," said Ochako. "That's all well and good, but you need your weapon," said Katsuki. "Weapon?" asked Ochako. "Oh wait, you mean the wand?" "Katsuki just likes calling it that because well," said Izuku. "Look, just place your hand on your gem and focus," said Katsuki. It should appeared. Ochako did so and a light pink light erupted from the gem and that light took the form of a wand with a light pink handle. At the tip of the wand was a bubble and with that bubble was a yellow star. "Oh wow," said Ochako. "So how does it work?" "Just point at it as something and see what happens," said Katsuki with a shrug. Ochako pointed it as garbage. They started to float, but something in the mind told her to try something else. She focused on the feeling and the garbage that was floating fell down with a mighty crash. "No way," said Ochako, figuring it out. "No way. With your wand not only do you remove the gravity from items but can also increase it. That's so awesome," said Izuku with his tail wagging. "This is so awesome," cheered Ochako. "I think she might be going mad with power," snorted Katsuki. "So did you when you found your wand?" joked Izuku. Katsuki glared at the small animal. "Please don't look at me that way, Kachan," cried Izuku. But of course spring break would eventually end and it would soon be the first day of school. Izuku left the apartment in his human form. Though he knew had to go most of the way in his animal form. Thankfully Ochako was going to help him to school because well, tiny animal wasn't exactly something that should take the train alone. "Do you have your handkerchief?" said Inko. "I do," said Izuku. "Pocket tissue?" said Inko. "I do," said Izuku. "You didn't fill your backpack with action figures?" asked Inko. "I haven't done that in years," said Izuku. "Ochako's waiting for me." He was just about to leave. "Wait, Izuku," said Inko. "Yeah?" asked Izuku. "You look so cool," said Inko. Izuku smiled brightly. He headed out and got to the entrance of the apartment complex where Ochako was waiting for him. He saw her in the uniform and blushed. "Everything okay?" asked Ochako. "It's fine," said Izuku. He switched to his animal form and jumped onto Ochako's shoulder. "You ready to go to Ua?" asked Ochako. Izuku smiled as he rode on her shoulder. And so their first day at Ua would begin. They got to the school, exchanged shoes, and Izuku going into human form to introduce himself better this way, and headed towards the classroom, which they thankfully shared. Izuku marveled at the massive door. "It must be for people who can't turn off their gigantism quirks," said Izuku. Izuku was the one to try to open the door but he was nervous. "What's wrong?" asked Ochako. "It's just I'm a bit nervous of that one guy sharing the class," said Izuku. Ochako remembered about the boy calling out Izuku during the exam. There's a good chance he's not in our class. I'm sure it will be fine, said Ochako. Izuku opened the door and they found that yes, he was in the class, and also Katsuki beat them to the classroom and had gotten into a fight with him. Katsuki was putting her feet on top of a desk with the boy scolding her. Of course, sighed Izuku, and Kachan clearly remembers what he did. Let me start over. My name is Tenya Iida and I went to Sume, said the boy named Tenya Iida. So private schoolboy. I bet that's where you got that large stick up your ass, said Katsuki. That was when Iida noticed Izuku. It's you, said Iida walking towards him. My name is Tenya Iida. I heard you introduce yourself to Kachan, said Izuku nervously. I'm Izuku Midoriya. That was when suddenly he bowed to Izuku. I apologize for my behavior before the exam. I now understand that you are the superior candidate, he said. What? Asked Izuku. Oh, I think he means the rescue points, said Ochako. Oh right, I wasn't thinking of that, said Izuku. Katsuki grumbled but knew she had to do it. All right ass munches, listen up. Deku is my brother in all but blood, yelled Katsuki. You got a problem with him and you got a problem with me. Izuku sighed at this. Most of the class was staring at Katsuki. As it turned out, Katsuki made some alterations to her uniform. She didn't wear the tie and she wore the skirt much shorter. So it looked very weird that such a girl would be defending a boy with a rather adorable looking quirk. Kachan, said Izuku. That was when the class noticed a man in a sleeping bag behind Ochako and Izuku, causing the two to jump at the man. I was going to say something about making friends, but I think you should also avoid making enemies, said the man getting up. Everyone in class stared at him, unsure how to respond to him. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, that's 8 seconds wasted, he said getting out of his sleeping bag. Alright, I'm you home teacher Aizawa. The class stared at the man who was dressed rather slovenly, and yes, he was the teacher who knew that Izuku was going to end up in his class. In fact, he stared at Izuku, Katsuki and Ochako for a brief second before continuing. Alright, I want all of you to put on this and meet me outside, he said taking out the gym uniform. You have 10 minutes. Thankfully everyone in class joined him outside within the time limit. What about orientation? Said Ochako. UA has a free style of learning and it allows the teachers to do the same. Said Aizawa. I find that things such as orientation and opening ceremonies unimportant to hero work. Instead we're going to do a quirk assessment. The students were confused. Bakugo, you got the highest score in the exam, said Aizawa. He tossed her a ball. What's the highest score you got in the softball throw? Said Aizawa. 75 meters. Muttered Katsuki. I want you to use your quirk for this. Normally I would say anything goes, but I would like to say you use your quirk and only your quirk. No other abilities given to you by someone else, said Aizawa. Katsuki scowled, knowing what he was getting at. Fine, she muttered, glaring at him. She held the ball and summoned her quirk. Die, she yelled at the top of her lungs, sending the ball soaring through the air with a very large explosion. Aizawa held up his phone showing how far the ball went, which was over 700 meters. We get to use our quirks, awesome, yelled a boy with blonde hair and a black stripe in whose name was Denki Kaminari. The is so much fun. I want to try. Cheered a girl that was completely pink and had horns on her head named Mina Shido. You think it would be fun with Murphy calls, fires, villain, attacks, floods, you think it would be fun then? Said Aizawa. You will be spending the next years learning how to be heroes. You can't expect to go out after school to hang out at McDonald's. They all looked at him nervously. That's why whoever get last place will get expelled, said Aizawa. Oh, but that's unfair, cried Ochako. Life isn't fair, said Aizawa. By the way, the same rule applies to you as it does Bakugo. No outside abilities other than your quirk. Ochako nodded. Most of the students were worried. Though Katsuki was among the ones that wasn't. Soon it was time for the first real event, which was 50-meter dash, which was done in pairs. You're not getting last place, Deku, muttered Katsuki, trying not reassure Izuku. But, said Izuku. Just pay attention to the girls, said Katsuki. Izuku's sweat dropped at this. The first two to go was Iida against a frog-like girl named Tsuyu Asui. An interesting thing was that Iida's leg that had an engine that gave him super speed. While Ochako went up absent a boy with a tail named Mashirao Ojiro. Izuku also paid attention to the match with a Shido, again a boy who shot a very sparkly laser from his stomach named Yuga Aoyama. Though after both Katsuki and Izuku were called up against each other. He did this purpose, sighed Izuku. Whatever, let's see who's better at this, said Katsuki. Izuku nodded. Izuku activated Katsuki's quirk and both of them were propelled by the explosions from their hand. However, Katsuki got 4.13 while Izuku got 4.61 seconds. Seriously, Deku? Asked Katsuki. You're in a lot better shape than I am, said Izuku. You got that right, snorted Katsuki. The second event, Izuku changed things up, with grip strength. He used his mother's quirk to pull the grip machoism towards him. It wasn't a lot, but it was probably better if he did it with his hand. But it was far less than the top student, a boy who had tentacles that could be turned into duplicate arms named Mezzo Shoji. For the third event, Izuku seemed a little nervous. You look like you got an idea. Joko Chako. I do, I hope it works, said Izuku. The third event was the long jump. Izuku started the event by using Ochako's quirk and jump high into the air. Then mid-leap he suddenly switched to Katsuki's. Thanks to how high he was combined with the propulsion, he ended up going much farther than anyone else. Okay, that interesting, Deku, laughed Katsuki as Izuku ran back. Izuku laughed knowing that a compliment from Katsuki. She's right, said Ochako, that was awesome. Yeah, said Izuku. Izuku could only use one at a time, however he knew how to quickly switch. I don't know if I'll get the chance to do something like that again, laughed Izuku. But still it was awesome, said Ochako. They didn't notice that there were people staring at them. Two of them was because of jealousy, in the form of Kaminari and a really short boy with purple hair and hairballs named Minoru Mineta. Another was Iida. Not because of jealousy but because he was trying to figure out Izuku's quirk. Especially since he had witnessed the bonding from a distance. I'll ask him later, thought Iida. The next one was repeated sidesteps. Once again Izuku used Katsuki's tactic. But it was Mineta who got the score as his quirk allowed him to pull off his hairballs and bounce off them. Though in reality it was the next event, the ball throw, that was the one where everyone really got to show off, it seemed like. One girl with a large ponytail named Momo Yaoyorozu created a cannon and shot the ball out. A boy with a rock-like head named Koji Koda got a bird to carry the ball away. A boy with a bird head named Fumakage Tokiyami got a shadow creature that lived inside of him to toss the ball as far as it could. Though it was Ochako who got the high score with Infit when she got the ball into space. Well, I know which one you're going to copy, snorted Katsuki. That was when Izuku felt a twitch in his nose. Oh no, he thought. Katsuki noticed the look on his face, as did Ochako, who saw what happens during that 2 weeks before school started. He sneezed, and suddenly he was engulfed by smoke. Those that didn't know about his transformation all jumped. Though it appeared that Iida, Aoyama and Shoji, all didn't look too surprised when the smoke cleared and the Izuku stood there in animal form. Of course I don't get to properly explain it to people, sighed Izuku. What the, said Kaminari. Did he turn into a stuffed toy? Asked a boy with spiky red hair and sharp teeth named Eijiro Kirishima. Oh, he's so cute, gushed an invisible girl named Toru Hagakuri. It's part of my quirk, sorry about it, said Izuku, who then turned back human. If I sneeze as a human I transform. Midoriya, after that you're going next, said Aizawa, glaring at him. Izuku laughed. He knew he was going to get tied for first place. When he was given the ball he activated Ochako's quirk, and much like before it was sent flying high into the sky and didn't come back down, so he shared the infinity score. Aizawa sighed. He knew that Izuku had a copy of Ochako's quirk, so he should have known that would be the result. He rejoined Katsuki and Ochako. However, Izuku kept getting stares. Ah, part of my quirk is also a copy quirk, said Izuku. Seriously? Asked a boy with somewhat long black hair and tape dispensers in his arms named Hantasiro. My quirk is really, really complicated, said Izuku, and I. However, that was when he sneezed again, turning him back into his animal form. Almost everyone stared at this. This really weird, said a girl with audio jacks on her ears named Kyoka Jiro. How does copying quirks and being an animal connected? Said a rather muscular boy with big lips named Rikido Sato. Who knows, said Jiro. However, a boy whose hair was red on his left side and white on his right side named Shoto Todoroki stared at Izuku as he changed back. The remaining tests were okay for Izuku. 2 of them he didn't use a quirk due to the fact that, well, none of them were good for the endurance running and sit-ups. But for seated toe touches he once again used his mom's quirk to put himself towards his shoes. And soon enough it was time for the test results. I won't go into details for the scoring, but here are the results, said Aizawa. Izuku looked for his name and breathed a sigh of relief that he was nowhere near last place. Come on Deku, you got first in place in one of them and tied for first place in another. Of course you won't going to get last place, muttered Katsuki. Yeah, said Izuku. However, they heard crying and saw Mineta had gotten last place. At least it wasn't that invisible girl, muttered Katsuki. Izuku nodded. After all, there were 5 girls and he knew he had to get to know them well enough for 2 of them agree to a bond. Oh, no one is getting expelled, said Aizawa. It was just a logical ruse for everyone to do their best. Honestly, said Yaoyorozu, it was obvious that's what he was doing. I'm surprised no one else figured it out. I'm not expelled, cried Mineta. I won't lose my chances with girls. All 7 girls of the class stared at that grape-headed boy. Fucking idiot, muttered Katsuki. There's a syllabus on your desks and I expect you all to read it. You're demised, said Aizawa, who then left. Wait. I have a question. Cloud out Izuku. Katsuki face-palmed, knowing what this was going to be about. What is it? Asked Aizawa, knowing what the question probably was. Which hero are you? Asked Izuku. I'm the underground hero Ezerhead, said Aizawa, but I doubt you've heard of me. Actually I have, said Izuku, whose tail started to wag. Your work let you temporarily erase any emitter or transformation quirks you're looking at, and… Can you please stop? Groaned Aizawa. Sorry, said Izuku. Aizawa just sighed. Of course the magical girl Mascot had to be a hero fanboy. Is his tail wagging? Asked Sato with a sweat drop. Yeah, it does that, muttered Katsuki. It's adorable, laughed Hagakure. Not too longer later, Izuku was at the school entrance waiting for Katsuki and Ochako. That was when someone grabbed his shoulder. Midoriya, said the person. How was Iida? Izuku jumped at this and ended up transforming into his animal form because of the surprise. Oh, I apologize for surprising you, said Iida. No, it's fine, I have to stop transforming when I get surprised, sighed Izuku, knowing he shouldn't transform back. Even if he had the time until he felt like he had enough time, he should travel in his animal form. Are you unable to transform back? Asked Iida. No, I have a 6-hour time limit in my human form, said Izuku. I'm not close to hitting it, but I don't want to get into the habit of traveling in my human form until I'm able to extend my time limit. I see, said Iida, but still I don't approve of Aizawa's hazing. What the fuck are you doing? Yelled Katsuki, glaring at Iida. Iida froze, remembering the declaration of protection that morning. I mean no ill will, said Iida. He wants to be my friend, said Izuku. Fine, whatever, I'll give you a chance, but don't screw it up, muttered Katsuki as Izuku jumped onto her shoulder. Iida immediately got the feeling that there was something going on. You guys ready? Asked Ochako, finally showing up. Oh, Infinity Girl, said Iida. Infinity Girl? Asked Ochako. Oh yeah, my score, I'm Ochako Uraraka. And I am Tenya Iida, he said, giving his introduction. So they all walked to the train station together. Ever since the exam I've been curious, said Iida. How did you save Uraraka exactly? Oh, you saw the bonding, didn't you? Asked Izuku, realizing it. Bonding? Asked Iida. He knew how to tell his classmates about it, so he gave most of the details about his quirk. I see, said Iida, who actually seemed somewhat interested. You don't want to do it, said Izuku. What? Asked Iida. There's a side effect if a guy bonds with him, said Katsuki. What sort of side effect? Said Iida. None of your business, muttered Katsuki. Kachan, said Ochako. Look, I don't fully trust him yet, said Katsuki, considering what he did during the exam. It sounds very personal and I won't push for it, said Iida. Thanks for understanding, said Izuku. If it's not rude to ask, how long have you been bonded for? Asked Iida. Like a week after Deku got his quirk, said Katsuki. If you've been bonded for that amount of time, I can understand your declaration of protection, said Iida. Don't fucking call it that. Because it wasn't one, yelled Katsuki. The others all sweat dropped, knowing that's what it was. Katsuki just glared at them. Whatever, she muttered. But still they continued on to the train station, with Izuku happy to make a new friend that was outside of him bonding with someone. And also he hoped he would figure out how to befriend 2 of the girls in his class. But still he was going to UA and one step closer to being a hero. Going to UA in the mornings was just like going to a regular school, much to a good chunk of the class disappointment. Though all of the teachers were pro-heroes, which was cool, even if what they were talking was normal school stuff. Though thankfully the teachers let Izuku take the classes in animal form, only transforming to human form if he had to ask a question or was called on. Most of the neighboring students had to get used to the puffs of smoke called by the transformation. But what everyone was looking forward to hero class, but that would be after lunch. And lunch was actually something Izuku was looking forward to, not because of the food, which was also cooked by a pro-hero, but because it was the first time he and Katsuki would eating lunch at school with friends. Of course his tail waged when meeting the pro that cooked for them. Though the lunch conversation explained something about his powers. So you have to eat like that, said Iida. Yeah, sighed Izuku, who was eating in animal form on Katsuki's lap. Why? Asked Iida. Portions. My stomach is smaller like this, and if I eat a full-sized portion in human form and I suddenly transform back, said Izuku. You don't need to say more, said Iida, immediately knowing what he meant. I think my body adjusts what I eat between forms so that the smaller meals work for my human form, said Izuku, begging a mutter spree, or even in human form I knows how to regulate the calorie intake, or possibly. Is he alright? Asked Iida. He does this, muttered Katsuki, used to it. It's even funnier when he does during the telepathic conversations, laughed Ochako. Says you, muttered Katsuki. I'm right here, said Izuku, who had stopped muttering and sweat dropped. There was an awkward silence. So can you tell me more about your telepathic bond? Asked Iida, quickly the subject. After lunch it was the class everyone was waiting for, heroics. And it was taught by All Might. I am coming through the door like a normal person, said All Might. It's really All Might. And he's wearing his Silver Age costume, squeaked Izuku, who was in human form this class. Also his tail was wagging like crazy. Midoriya, control your tail, yelled Mineta, who was the unlucky student who sat behind him as he was getting a large gust of wind from the tail. Alright, now I know you're all excited for your first hero class, but there is something that all heroes will need, said All Might. He took out a switch and part of the wall opened up, revealing multiple metal cases. Costumes, yelled most of the class. Katsuki snorted at their reaction as most of the class was excited. But to be fair, she did have her costume since she was 4, so she was used to it. However, Izuku was more interested in what his support gear was like. His actual costume, on the other hand, flashback. Izuku and Katsuki were going over Izuku's costume. I keep telling you, something over your head will make your ears uncomfortable, said Katsuki. But, said Izuku, who wanted to go with that design. Stop trying to copy All Might. Your powers are extremely different from All Might, said Katsuki. Izuku sighed. Izuku, said Inko, showing up. The two looked at her. I know it isn't much, but I got you a gift for passing the exam, said Inko. She took out a simple jumpsuit. I know it isn't that nice or flashy, said Inko. No, it's perfect, said Izuku. Katsuki watched as the two talked about and hugged. She knew Izuku was a bit of a mama's boy, but she would never call him out on. You know, with that out of the way, we still need to work on other parts of your costume, pointed Katsuki. We need something for you head that will look cool, that's not an imitation All Might mask. Izuku's sweat dropped while Inko giggled. End of flashback. Alright, so put on your costumes and meet me at training ground Beta, called out All Might. All of the students went to the locker rooms to get dressed. However, in the girls' locker room both Ochako and Katsuki just waited for the other girls to get dressed. Hey, wait. Why aren't you putting on your costumes? Asked Hagakure, who was the first one done. As her costume just consisted of a pair of gloves and a pair of shoes. She was invisible after all. Our costumes are special, said Ochako. How so? Asked Hagakure. The two looked at each other and nodded. Both of them grabbed their necklaces and transformed. Their classmates watched in surprise. No way, said Hagakure. Where did you get those? Said Ashido. You have to ask Deku, said Katsuki with a smirk. He's the one that gave us these costumes, said Ochako. In fact, he made them. They saw the looks on their classmates' faces. Asui and Jiro looked a little curious. Yaoyorozu looked very curious. Ashido looked very interested, and Hagakure was invisible and was only wearing a pair of glove and shoes, so they couldn't judge from her body language. And soon enough all of the students all gathered in their costumes. Izuku's was actually quite simple. He wore the jumpsuit his mother gave him. A pair of fingerless white gloves that had tubes connecting to a belt, with small container in the belt. He wore his favorite pair of shoes, bright red sneakers, and a green visor covered his eyes. It wasn't much, but he felt he had to have something on his face or head. Alright, said All Might, looking at the students, now you all look like heroes. Hey Midori, called out Ashido. Izuku jumped. That was when he noticed Ashido, Hagakure and Yaoyorozu all looking at him. Well, he figured Hagakure was looking at him. We were wondering how did you create those costumes for Bakugo and Uraraka, said Yaoyorozu. Wait, said Izuku. He turned to his two partners. Katsuki was smirking and Ochako was smiling somewhat sheepishly. No, said Izuku. He opened up his telepathy and did something he knew he had to. He tattled. Mom, Kachan and Ochako advertised their costumes to the other girls, thought Izuku. Oh honey, if you're going to get 2 more partners by the end of the school year, you know they have to help you, replied Inko. That was when both Katsuki and Ochako started laughing hysterically. Seriously Deku, what did you think was going to happen? Pointed out Katsuki as she was still laughing, that she would take your side. Izuku pouted a little. Midoriya, are you okay? Asked Yaoyorozu. I'm fine. Ending the telepathic conversation. Sorry, it's just that it's connected to my quirk and… Wait, you gave them costumes like that, and it's part of your quirk, said Hagakure. Yeah, said Izuku. Wait, are you a magical girl mascot, said Hagakure. Izuku froze when she said that. He didn't expect a girl in class to be a fan of magical girls. He looked at Katsuki and Ochako, who both shrugged. Well, there was a good chance she might end up being one of his partners by the end of the year. But before more could be said, All Might cleared his throat and it was time to discuss how the class was going to work. Alright, all of you are looking good, said All Might. Are you ready for today's lesson, newbies, because it's battle training? Are you sure it's a good idea? Asked Asui. Shouldn't we be doing basic training? There's nothing more basic than battle, said All Might. Are we going to be battling like the entrance exam? Asked Iida, who was wearing a costume that made up of armor. No, you're going to have a fight indoors this time, said All Might. After all, many villain fights happen indoors. Hostage situations, evil plots, that sort of thing. Now do you have any questions? And then the flood of questions came. How will the matches be determined? Asked Iida. What will determine victory? Asked Yaoyorozu. Will we have worry about being expelled if we lose? Sked Ochako. Isn't this cape très chic? Sked Aoyama, showing off his very sparkly cape. Slow down, my quirk isn't super hearing, said All Might. That was when he took out his notes and explained how it will go down. The scenario was that 2 students would be heroes and 2 other will be villains. The plot was that the villains had captured a nuclear bomb and had 15 minutes until it detonated. The heroes must capture the villains in order to stop the bomb. In order to win for the heroes, they must either capture both villains or capture the bomb, by just touching it. While the villains win by either capturing the heroes or time runs out. It was during the explanation Izuku realized something. If you're the hero, a stealth approach would be best, Izuku said to himself out loud. Katsuki smirked, knowing what Izuku was getting at. If you end up as a hero, I feel really bad for the villain, said Katsuki. Alright, for the pairings we will be choosing by lots, said All Might. Is that a good idea? Asked Iida. It makes sense, said Izuku, because heroes often have to team up with heroes from other agencies. Oh, I see, I believe I understand, said Iida. Time to draw lots, said All Might. As it turned out, Izuku was in Team A with Ochako. We got lucky, said Ochako. Izuku nodded as his tail waged a little. Whole Katsuki and Iida were placed in the same team as Team D. Could be worse, muttered Katsuki. Iida wasn't sure what to say to the explosive girl. Alright, time for the first hero team, Team A against the first villain team, Team D, said All Might. Katsuki's eye started to twitch. Fuck, she yelled. All Might gave advice to the villains really play into the role of villains, and they were given time to set up the fake bomb. In the building it was meant to go down, Katsuki was just pinching the bridge of her nose while Iida examined the fake bomb. So this is the bomb, said Iida, who knocked on it and made a hollow sound. Fake, of course. He then sighed. It pains me to play the villain, but in order to be a hero, said Iida. He finally noticed his partner. Bakugo, are you alright? He asked. We are going to lose, muttered Bakugo. What? Asked Iida. I said we are going to fucking lose, yelled Bakugo. What makes you think that? Asked Iida. Bakugo sighed. Outside, Izuku and Ochako were strategizing, and thankfully Izuku had one set up. So what is it? Asked Ochako. When I was little I figured out a way to utilize my animal form, said Izuku. Really? Asked Ochako. Izuku nodded. Flashback. A young Katsuki was waiting in the park. Hey Kachan, called out Izuku in animal form, running toward her. I came up with an idea how to be a hero in my animal form. Katsuki turned towards him and Izuku noticed something about her. Oh, is that another new dress? Said Izuku. What about it? Muttered Katsuki, glaring at the small animal in front of her like she was going to kill him. Oh, nothing, squeaked out Izuku. So what was this about being a hero? Said Katsuki. I figured out I can use this to be sneaky, said Izuku. What do you mean? Asked Katsuki. I mean, sometimes a hero has to sneak into places. And if I use this to sneak into places, said Izuku. The villains won't notice you, said Katsuki. Izuku nodded. Come on, let's play hide and seek, said Izuku. Katsuki quickly deduced why. Okay, said Katsuki. So hide and seek became a new training for Izuku's animal form. End of flashback. Back in the villain base, so we have to keep an eye out for Deku, said Katsuki. He's a stealth expert. I didn't expect him to be one, said Iida, surprised. Deku's smart when it comes analysis, said Katsuki. Really? Asked Iida. And he's working with Roundface, muttered Katsuki. Wait, can't you interfere with the telepathic bond, said Iida. He's not going to use it. He can't make it one-on-one, said Katsuki. One day he might figure it out, but for now it's on group chat mode. He probably would have used it if I wasn't one he's fighting. I see, said Iida. Unless we see him before he gets the bomb, then we're fucked, muttered Katsuki. Don't give up just yet. I'm sure we'll be able to figure out his plan, said Iida. Outside, Izuku finished up explaining his plan. I don't think Kacchan will see that coming, giggled Ochako. She's already paranoid as it is, but this plan, said Izuku as he handed her his earpiece. He turned to his animal form and placed his earpiece into his ear, thankfully fitted in animal form. Just be careful, said Ochako. I don't know what might happen if you're using it too long. That was when there was chime and the hero team knew that they had to go in. Ochako helped Izuku with the first part of the plan. Then she went in to find the bomb. As that is the next stage of the plan, she found it in a large room where the two were waiting. We don't know when they will show up, said Iida, but it's still a good idea to get into the mindset. What? Asked Katsuki, and that was when he decided to go into character. I am the ultimate evil, said Iida, putting on a menacing voice. That was when Ochako started to laugh hysterically. Uraraka, I've found you, called out Iida. Of course she'd give herself away, muttered Katsuki. Ochako sighed, but it was better for to catch them. After all, she was the distraction. Deku was the one handing the bomb. You gave yourself away, hero, Iida mockingly told her. You idiot, muttered Katsuki, she's a distraction. What? Yelled Iida. I told you Deku's a stealth expert, said Katsuki. And he told me that you lost most of your hide and seek games, giggled Ochako. Only when he started getting good at it, yelled Katsuki. Even so, said Iida, I have cleared up the room. Without debris I doubt there is much you can do. That's why you were cleaning the room, yelled Katsuki. You didn't know what I was doing? Asked Iida. I thought you were just bored and decided to clean, muttered Katsuki. That was when Ochako summoned her wand. Shit, yelled Katsuki. What? Asked Iida. She pointed her wand at the two of them. And gravity for them was turned off. How is this possible? Yelled Iida. It's part of the power-up Deku gave her, said Katsuki. In the viewing room the other students were watching in surprise when she summoned her wand. No way, said Hagakure, it even give her a wand, that is so cool. Where did that wand even come from? Asked Kaminari. I saw it came from that jewel she's wearing, said Hagakure. I can't believe that our classmate is a magical girl mascot. All Might coughed, or rather fake coughed at being reminded of the fact that one of his hero students was a magical girl mascot. Back with the fight. Katsuki knew she had to fight back. Keep an eye for Deku when you crash back down, said Katsuki. What? Asked Iida. Katsuki summoned her own wand. Let's have a fucking wand fight, said Katsuki. She pointed her wand at Ochako and caused an explosion next to her, causing the other girl to jump. However, this did distraction her enough to free the two from the anti-gravity. Katsuki managed to land on her feet, but Iida fell hard. Katsuki looked around a bit and couldn't see where Izuku was before turning her attention to Ochako. Damn it, Deku. Where are you? Muttered Katsuki. Iida was keeping an eye out for Izuku. However, Ochako noticed this and pointed her wand at him. This, however, his gravity increased and he forced to the ground. However, Katsuki once again pointed her wand near Ochako, which of course distracted her. The power that Midoriya gave you is impressive, but it cannot defeat our evil plans, taunted Iida, still in character. Both Katsuki and Ochako took a quick break to stare him. Katsuki decided to create her own character in response. I barely know this asshole and just wanted to work with him because of his resources, muttered Katsuki. Seriously, yelled Iida. Ochako couldn't help but to giggle. However, Katsuki took advantage of this momentary distraction, create more explosions. Ochako dodged by turning off her own gravity and landed on the other side of the room, but nowhere nearby the bomb. You fool. You're even farther away from the bomb than before, mocked Iida. You idiot, didn't you forget she's the distraction, yelled Katsuki. Even though he was wearing a helmet, Katsuki would tell he was gritting his teeth. Ochako got ready for another attack, however something else happened. Okay, said Izuku's voice some quietly into her earpiece. He was in position. Ochako caused her wand to disappear. Release, she said, putting her fingers together. What? Asked Katsuki and Iida at the same time. Hero team wins, called out All Might. The two villains turned towards the bomb and they saw that Izuku, still in animal form, was on top of it. And Katsuki put two and two together. He had her use her quirk on him to float around while she distracted them. Of fucking course, muttered Katsuki, you took advantage of the fact I would be looking for the ground. Izuku nodded as he let go on the bomb and dropped down to the floor. He then promptly vomited up a rainbow. Midoriya, yelled Iida in shock. How long was it under your quirk? Asked Katsuki. Since we've been in the building, said Ochako. It was my idea, said Izuku once his stomach was empty. Should we be concerned that his vomit looks like that? Said Iida. No, it's fine, said Katsuki. Well, it's a side effect of my quirk, said Ochako, blushing a little. Both Katsuki and Izuku looked at Ochako. Okay, what are the chances of that? Said Katsuki. I don't know, sighed Izuku. Wait, you mean you normally vomit up rainbows? Asked Ochako in shock. Yeah, said Izuku, blushing. Please return to the viewing room for your grading, called out All Might. They got back to the viewing room where All Might was giving them their grade. Now to announce the MVP of the match, young Midoriya, said All Might. Really? Said Izuku, who had gone back to human form for his grade, and of course his tail was wagging. Now can any of you explain why? Asked All Might. Yaoyorozu held up her hand. It was because of his plan. Midoriya came up with a plan that ensured victory. While Uraraka played her part as a distraction, she ironically got distracted. Bakugo and Iida, while doing their best to work together, did fall for the distraction, but at the same time they weren't expecting Midoriya to drop from the ceiling and expected him to come from somewhere on the floor, said Yaoyorozu. All Might wasn't sure how to respond to it. Well, I wouldn't use that many words, but I would also point out that Midoriya could have had less time under Uraraka's quirk to prevent the side effect, said All Might. Izuku laughed nervously as this. Alright, on to the next match, said All Might. Izuku watched remaining matches with interest, watching to see how his classmates uses their quirks. Though the biggest surprise was during Todoroki's fight, where he was one of the heroes. The other was Shoji, and they went up against Ojiro and Hagakure. Shoji didn't do anything, as Todoroki just froze the entire building, stopping his opponent's cold, pun partially intended, and touched the bomb like it was nothing. Holy shit! Yelled Katsuki when she saw that. He's so strong, said Izuku in surprise. But other than that, he did pay some attention to the girls of his class. After all, he was supposed partner up with one of them. But eventually all the matches were done. All right. All of you did a fantastic job, said All Might, and none of the injuries were that bad. What about Hagakure? Asked Izuku. Well, her injuries weren't that bad, said All Might. It should be noted in her match she took off her shoes and gloves. So yeah, she was completely naked during the match. Now I'm sure all of you have learned lessons in your fights, said All Might. Now, I will show you how pro hero leaves. He ran off very quickly. Oh wow, he's so manly, called out Kirishima. That's weird, said Izuku. What do you mean? Asked Katsuki. The way he left, it was like he was in a hurry, said Izuku. Probably all in your head, said Katsuki. After getting changed, they all went back to the class. However, it seemed like a good chunk of the class wanted to hang back for a bit and talk about their fights. By the way, Midori, your fight was awesome, said Ashido. Really? Said Izuku, blushing a little. Yeah, your plan was so crazy, said Shiro. You just dropped from the ceiling like nothing, said Ashido. I played hide and seek a lot with Kacchan, said Izuku. Katsuki could tell that this wasn't something she didn't need to defend him from and joined the conversation. The idiot decided that doing that in his animal form would be a great way to train in stealth, said Katsuki. Did you just call him an idiot even if the idea was smart, said Kirishima with a sweat drop. Do you want to make something of it, shitty hair? Demanded Katsuki. Kacchan, cried Izuku. Izuku looked at his classmates. It feels weird, thought Izuku, activating the telepathy. What does? Asked Katsuki. Being accepted like this, thought Izuku. You still haven't explained everything about your quirk, pointed out Katsuki. Ochako, Katsuki and Izuku were walking to school together, or rather Izuku was riding Katsuki's shoulder. But still the three of them were together. Then they saw the horrifying sight of the press gathered outside. What's the press doing here? Asked Katsuki. I don't know, said Izuku. That was when Katsuki grabbed Izuku from her shoulder. Kacchan? Asked Izuku. Then Katsuki prodded to stuff her best friend into her backpack. Kachan. Why are you doing this? Cried Izuku. Because you don't have enough of a spine to deal with the press yet, said Katsuki. Ochako just sweat dropped at this sight. And so they headed inside with the press demanding to know about All Might. Well, he's all Mukely, said Ochako answering the questions. Get the fuck away from me, muttered Katsuki making her way through. Once Katsuki was in class, she put her backpack on Izuku's desk and let him out. Really, Kachan? Yelled Izuku once he was free. Look, we both know you would just freeze up with the press, said Katsuki. You need to grow a spine, but dealing with the press isn't the best way to do that. You could have done something else and not stuff me into your backpack, cried Izuku. It either that or toss you over the fence, said Katsuki. Izuku stared at his best friend. Seriously, Kachan, sighed Izuku. Wait, why didn't you let me switch out my shoes? Katsuki's sweat dropped. Wait, do I have time? Aced Izuku. I don't think you'll have time, said Ochako. Izuku sighed at this. I doubt anyone will notice, said Katsuki. Kachan, everyone will notice my shoes, sighed Izuku. Katsuki just shrugged. Soon enough class had begun. I have seen all of yesterday's matches, there's not much for me to say, muttered Aizawa. That might be, but there is something you must do that affect your future. The entire class was nervous when he said that. You must pick a class representative, said Aizawa. Normal school stuff, the class yelled out in surprise. Before most of the class wanting to become class representative. After all, it was a title that many hero agencies would notice and great way to prove leadership skills. It was a madhouse. Hold on, yelled Iida. This isn't a position that should be given away lightly. The best way to choose is to hold election. Wait, if we do that, won't everyone vote for themselves? Asked Kirishima. He's right, none of know each other well, said Asui. Speak for yourself, muttered Katsuki. But whoever gets more than one vote means that they have already earned the trust of other students, said Iida, and thus proving they have what it takes to represent our class. What do you think, Aizawa? Asked Yaoyorozu. Just whatever, muttered Aizawa. Just don't take all day. Izuku looked at Iida and knew what he had to do, and soon enough everyone voted. However, it did not go the way Izuku expected at all. 2 students got more than 1 vote. Yaoyorozu, who managed to get 2 votes for herself. And the other was Izuku. How did I get 3 votes? Thought Izuku. At the same time, Iida was lamenting something. I only got a single vote? Asked Iida. Hey, come on, at least your vote got counted, Sato said, reassuring him. Iida didn't say something as the class realized something. He didn't vote for himself. Seriously, Deku? Asked Katsuki, turning around to look at Izuku. Izuku sighed. And so he, in human form, and Yaoyorozu stood in front of the class. Now these are the ones you picked, do you have any complaints? Asked Aizawa. Is Midoriya wearing his outdoor shoes? Asked Jiro. Izuku sighed. It's not my fault, sighed Izuku. Kachan stuffed me into her backpack so I wouldn't have to deal with the press and only let me out when we got to class, and I didn't have time to go back to the lockers and switch out my shoes. Everyone stared at Izuku. That only makes sense because you're the one saying it, said Jiro. Izuku laughed nervously at that. But still, he really didn't think he's up to the task. During lunch, of course, he was eating with his friends. This time he sat on Ochako's lap. I can't believe the cafeteria is so crowded, said Ochako. The other core students are also eating here, said Izuku, so it makes sense. He then sighed. Come on, Deku, it's not that bad, said Katsuki. But I don't know if I do a good job, cried Izuku. I mean, what if I screw up? What if I? This is why I voted for you, muttered Katsuki. You need to gain a backbone. If you don't get one, then how are you going to get 2 more partners? Izuku pouted somewhat. I believe you can do it, Midoriya, said Iida. That's why I voted for you. But didn't you want the job yourself? Asked Izuku. Wanting it and being qualified are 2 different things, said Iida. But you do have the look for it, said Ochako, what with the glasses and all. That's not how you should judge a class representative, thought Izuku with a sweat drop. That might be, said Iida, sounding like he agreed with Izuku's thought, but I believe you the better candidate and I humbly give the job to you. Humbly? Asked Ochako. Iida, are you rich? Iida began to blush a little. Well, I don't like tell people about this, said Iida, but I come from the Iida family, a family that had been heroes for many years. Have you heard of Ingenium? Oh yeah. He's the turbo hero. He has an agency in Tokyo and has 65 sidekicks, said Izuku with his tail wagging. He's my older brother, said Iida. Really? Asked Izuku with his tail wagging even more. Cool, said Ochako. Katsuki just nodded. He is someone who is very admirable in both heroics and leadership skills. And one day I hope to achieve the skills that he has, said Iida smile. The three looked at Iida surprised. What? Asked Iida. This is the first time I've seen you smile, said Ochako. I smile, said Iida. Katsuki gave Izuku a certain hand signal. It was a signal for Izuku to turn on his telepathy. Hey, Katsuki told him. I think we should tell him. Really? Replied Izuku surprised. Wait, you don't mean, thought Ochako. What's going on? Asked Inko. We're going to tell him about the side effects, explained Katsuki. Inko remembering hearing about Iida knowing it was him. However, before any more could be said, alarm sounded and a voice informing them, a level 3 intruder alert. Please remain calm and evacuate. What's a level 3 intruder alert? Asked Ochako to some older students nearby. It means someone got into the school. It hasn't happened in my time here, said the person she asked. But of course everyone started to freak out as they tried to evacuate. Ochako held onto Izuku as tightly as they could as the hallway was jam-packed with everyone trying to flee. During the madness, Iida got pushed into the window and saw what was really going on. The press had broken in. He tried to calm everyone down. But no one listened. He got a plan down. He asked Ochako to cancel out his gravity and he propelled himself to spot and ended up looking like the little guy on the emergency exit and calmed everyone down. This also made Izuku realize something, as well as something he wanted. After everything calmed down, and Izuku got the chance to finally change out his shoes, they called Izuku and Yayorozu for class business. Now I guess we should determine the other class positions, said Aizawa. Wait, before we get started I want to say something, said Izuku. After what happened I think that Iida should be class representative. The class was surprised. Seriously, Deku? Asked Katsuki. After what just happened, he showed us what he can do, and true leadership skills, said Izuku. He's got a point, said Kirishima. Yeah, Eminency exit did calm everyone down, agreed Siro. It should be pointed out that Pose did earn Iida the nickname Emergency Exit. Whatever, muttered Aizawa, who was clearly done with everything. I was the one who got more votes than him, thought Yayorozu with a sigh. And with that Izuku was able to give up his position as class representative. However, the day wasn't over. Afterward, while walking to the train station. Listen, emergency exit, muttered Katsuki. Iida froze. You really seem like you want to be Izuku's friend, said Katsuki. Iida was even more surprised. Did you just say, said Iida. Iida, sighed Izuku, if you're serious about being my friend, we think we should tell you about my quirk side effect. Oh, I see, said Iida, remembering how they were defensive about keeping it private the other day. Just a word of warning, if you want nothing to do with us, I will make your life a living hell any time we have to deal with each other. Iida just nodded, remembering how protective Katsuki was towards Izuku. Alright, sighed Izuku. He told him the side effect of his quirk if he bonded with a male and how he knew about. He looked at both Katsuki and Izuku. I see, said Iida, that actually explains quite a bit. Izuku and Katsuki both looked at him, as did Ochako, who was silent during this. You can't control what your quirk does, said Iida. Really? Asked Izuku, who looked to be on the verge of crying. Iida nodded. It's terrible that you had to go through all that. Izuku started crying so much that his tears were like a waterfall. Thank you so much, cried Izuku. Is this another side effect of his quirk? Asked Iida. No, Auntie is like this too, said Katsuki, removing Izuku from her shoulder to avoid getting soaked. Well, even more soaked. With that many tears she was already pretty soaked. Good to know you're an actual friend, said Katsuki with a genuine smile. What do you mean? Asked Iida. Everyone in our school wanted to be a hero, yet none of them really practiced what they preached, said Katsuki. They talked about how they were planning to go to a hero school, completely unaware of how they really were. You really want to be a hero. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Asked Iida. Both Izuku and Katsuki were quiet, well except for Izuku's sobs. It's clear none of them were really trying to be a hero, ate Iida. Well, I hate to ruin the moment, but we really should go to the train station, said Ochako. You're quite right, said Iida. Come on Deku, you have to stop crying, said Katsuki. I know, cried Izuku. They co-united to the train station, happy that Iida was a true friend and accepted them despite everything. The next day it was a normal school day, thankfully without any problems during lunch. But it was after lunch that was the most interesting. Alright, today's class will be different. We're going to perform rescue training. From floods to fires you're going to learn what it's like to rescue people, said Aizawa. The class was excited. It will also be held off-site, so we will be taking a bus there, said Aizawa. All Might will meet us there along with another hero. He then hit the switch for their costumes. You may wear your costumes, but remember they might not be suited for rescue work, so remember that when getting ready, said Aizawa. And so the class met up outside the buses. Everyone but Ochako and Katsuki wearing their costumes. The two wearing their gym clothes. Though many of them weren't wearing their entire costumes, as Izuku wasn't wearing his visor or gloves. "Alright everyone," called out Iida, taking charge. "Line up according to class number and step aboard the bus." "He's really getting into his role as class representative," said Ochako. "I think you made a mistake in giving it to him," muttered Katsuki. Izuku laughed at this. However, during the bus ride, Iida was lamenting that the bus screwed up his plans for boarding as it was an open layout. "I tend to speak my mind a lot, and I was wondering something," said Asui. "What is it, Asui?" asked Izuku, who was in animal form during the bus ride. "You can call me Su," said Asui, or rather Suyu, "and your quirk doesn't make any sense." "Yeah, it doesn't make any sense unless you know all about it," laughed Izuku. "So how does it work?" asked Kirishima. "Well, it's called Magical Girl Mascot," said Izuku. "I knew it," yelled Hagakure somewhere on the bus. "You see, it allows me create bonds with people," said Izuku. "They get a special costume, a power boost while in the costume, and other abilities while in human form. I get a copy of their quirk without the power boost I give them. We also gain a telepathic bond, but it's not all the time and I'm the only one who can turn it on." "Wait, did you give them those wands?" asked Kaminari. Izuku nodded. "So wait, is just with girls or can anyone bond with you? Aside Kirishima, I mean, you said people." "There's a side effect if I bond with someone that's male," said Izuku. "Really, what is it?" asked Suyu. "I'll explain another time," said Izuku. "Midoriya had a history of bullying because of that side effect," said Iida, "so please don't press him." "Wait, you told emergency exit?" asked Kaminari. "He earned mine and Deku's trust," muttered Katsuki, "and the rest of you haven't done the same, so don't." The "or else" was left unsaid. "Also, another thing I get is an added 2 hours as a human if I bond with someone," said Izuku. "I only have 6 hours for now, which is why I limit my time." "Wait, are you looking for more people to bond with?" asked Yaoyorozu. Izuku nodded. "But I'm not going to make any bond with me unless they want to, or it's an emergency and there's no other choice," said Izuku. "What kind of emergency?" asked Kirishima. "Well, I bonded with him during the exam," said Ochako. "Oh yes, I remember that. You were almost crushed by the 0-pointer," said Aoyama. "I remember the sparkle you created when it happened. She was pinned by debris and neither my mom's or Kachan's quirks would have gotten her free," said Izuku. "Wait, you bonded with your mom?" asked Kaminari. "I didn't mean to on my end and my mom decided to because of reasons," said Izuku. "What do you mean you didn't mean to?" asked Suyu. "After I bonded with Kachan, I started to try to initiate bonds randomly. I could barely control it. No one but my mom took it thought," said Izuku. "It took me months to control it." "Don't make it creepy, Pikachu," muttered Katsuki, glaring at Kaminari. Even Ochako was glaring at Kaminari. "I need to make 2 more bonds by the end of the year," sighed Izuku. "But like I said, I won't make anyone do it, so don't worry." Izuku sighed. Okay, so his classmates now knew that he was looking for partners and he had a reason for not taking boys, even if they didn't know that reason. They soon got to their location, which was a large domed building that looked like something like a theme park. "Oh wow, it's like Universal Studios," said Ashido. "Welcome," said the hero teacher who was dressed like an astronaut, "and welcome to a facility I built." "Oh wow, it's 13, said Ochako, really excited. "They're my favorite hero." "I know. A rescue hero," said Izuku, who had returned to his human form as his tail waged profusely. "Wasn't All Might was supposed to hear?" asked Aizawa. "Unforgeable, he got up in something," said 13, holding up 3 fingers. The hero then turned to the students. "Now this is a faculty I built called the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short," said 13. "It really Universal Studios Japan," thought all of the students. "Now before I get started I want to make a point, or rather 2, maybe 3, no wait 4, definitely 4, said 13. The students all sweat dropped. "Now you will be here to learn rescue training," said 13, "and all of you have quirks. But there is a dangerous side to your quirks. Take for instance my quirk Black Hole, it sucks up everything and turns it to dust. You've used that quirk in many rescue missions," said Izuku. "Yes, but it also can easily be used to kill," said 13. "Many of your quirks can be used for good, but remember they are often dangerous. You have learned how to use your quirks to fight. But today you will learn how to use your quirk to save people. After all, your powers aren't meant to inflict harm. Thank you all for listening. The class applauded with Iida being the loudest. But before class could begin, the lights suddenly went out. Then they noticed in a central plaza a strange black and purple thing appeared, which then got bigger. The students all saw this. Are those robots? Asked Kirishima. No, stand back. Those are real villains, said Aizawa. The students were shocked. Aren't there supposed to intruder alarms? Asked Yayorozu. They're supposed to go off, said 13, but I don't understand why. This is clearly an organized attack, said Todoroki. They're not a bunch of idiots, they knew they would be here. They picked a place far away from the main campus at a time where there would be few people. There's something blocking our communications with some kind of electrical quirk, said Aizawa. Kaminari tried to get into contact with the school. Okay, said Kaminari. Wait, I can get in contact with my mom, said Izuku, she can call the school. He activated his telepathy. Mom, can you hear us? Thought Izuku. Yeah, replied Inko. You need to get in contact with the school now. We're at a place called the USJ. They're blocking the communications. We can't get in contact with the school, explained Izuku. It's true. There's a lot of villains here, added Ochako. I'll call them right away. Keep this open, please Izuku, replied Inko. Don't worry, I doubt Deku would do anything stupid and cut it off, responded Katsuki. Evacuate them, said Aizawa, I'll handle them. Wait, your quirk isn't good with large crowds, said Izuku. Your quirk is suited for one-on-one fights and binding. No good hero is a one-trick pony, said Aizawa, 13. And with that, Aizawa jumped right into a large crowd of villains. Izuku watched as their teacher held his own. Midoriya, now's not the time, watch, scolded Iida. Oh right, said Izuku. They all began to excavate, but before they could leave the building, the black and purple mass blocked their path. It was a villain that was Amorphous Cloud. Greetings, we are the League of Villains, said the Amorphous Cloud. Forgive our audacity, but we are here for one reason: to kill the symbol of peace. Everyone looked at the Amorphous Cloud in shock. He was supposed to be here, but he isn't here, said the Amorphous Cloud, but no matter, I still have a role to play. That was when Katsuki transformed and went in to attack the Amorphous Cloud, being joined by Kirishima. Kachan, thought Izuku. What did she do? Asked Inko. You probably don't want to know, sighed Ochako. Bet you didn't expect that, taunted Kirishima. But I noticed that it didn't seem to work. Get back, yelled 13. But it was too late. The entire area was covered by the Amorphous Cloud's power, engulfing all of the students, and spreading most of them through the US, where other villains were waiting for them, and hopefully they would be able to get out of this.